Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Saturday Night Room. It is LFC Transfer Room's Saturday Night Club, is what I was supposed to say first time around. We got there in the end, though. I'm joined by Dan, and West is, so he says, he's on his way. We'll see when West appears, but we're coming off the back of another win, a really impressive win, actually. Dan, I think I saw your name down for the post-match stream as well. I should think that was a very jubilant affair, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, me and Dylan, it was a really good time. Like with lots to talk about, lots of very interesting things that have happened today. Like a lot to be happy about. What Dylan's not quite ready to start singing, start singing the song that we all want to sing. But it was it was like very jubilant, very good professional win. Rode the luck, but in a title winning season, that's what you're gonna have. Is that you're going to have to ride your luck at times.
Yeah, absolutely. If I dash, Dan already knows, but if I dash, I am 2 monitors on, daddy daycare, so or night care as it would be. So if I do have to dash, it's because one of them's awake. Hopefully, though, they will stay sound asleep. But if I do have to dash, Dan will take over, and I'm sure Wes will be with us soon. So I suppose one of the main talking points, and again, if it's going to be a fairly short show because Dan's already been on the post-match and, they've already had that stream. So please do go back and have a watch of it. There isn't any transfer news. There's no contract news. So it is just a little bit of a breakdown of today and tomorrow. So Liverpool do extend their lead. They are top still, obviously, as it always would, but by 9 points. And that's massive for the game tomorrow. We'll talk about that later. I suppose the only slight concern and slight issue is the fact that Trent Alexander went off injured, and Arne Slot has said that he has essentially said that he wanted to come off because he felt a niggle. He's going to go and have a scan. He doesn't feel that he's going to be there for the Tottenham game, which is a big blow. We do have Conor Bradley waiting in the wings, but hopefully he'll be back for that derby because as a local lad, I'm sure he'll want to play the last game at Goodison Park. But Dan, how much does it worry you that Trent Alexander-Arnold might be facing a bit of time on the sidelines?
It just depends. I mean, I think we were talking about on the pre-match yesterday when it was me and I forgot who previewed the game with Lou and everybody else. It just depends. I mean, I think it shouldn't come to a shock that Trent has been picking up these muscular injuries a bit more recently than I think most of us would have liked. I mean, obviously, people are going to mention it because obviously Salah scored today, and we still have a number of different players that have not signed their contracts yet, that have not agreed to extend their stay with us at Liverpool. I think one of the reasons why you may have seen that they may have been reluctant to tie Trent down, even though I know we've talked about the chat, Richie, and I think we're generally in the same agreement. I think that Trent has been showing himself to get a little more injury prone with these muscular injuries, but also with Conor Bradley being as solid as he has been the past few games out and the past few from last season to this season, it would be a blow, especially with us coming into some pretty big games. But also, if you are going to get injured, I think 11 days before the derby isn't the worst time to pick up an injury, especially with our next two games being Plymouth Argyle in the FA Cup and also, who am I forgetting? Plymouth Argyle and Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. It's actually not the worst thing in the world that Trent might have a couple weeks doing some recovery. Maybe he might even sign the contract. I doubt at this point, but you never know, especially with these situations and how they go. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely a worry, but I think we're pretty well stocked in that position, and Gomez is also about to come back. So I think both of those are those are situations that very much will help us. Will help alleviate that worry with Trent potentially being on the sidelines for a couple of games.
Yeah, and listen, there's not much of a drop off, is there, to Conor Bradley? So it's not the end of the world, as you quite rightly said. I think saying that, to be fair, even if it was Mo Salah who dropped off, and we'll talk about him in a moment, Fede Chiesa had a really impressive 90 minutes against PSV. So hopefully now we've got a ready-made replacement for him. But again, you know, the drop off from Trent to Bradley isn't too deep. So hopefully, as you say, it's quite a good run of fixtures. And I know that Wolves obviously had a shock result, what I thought, against Aston Villa. They've just beaten them 2-0 at home in what is a massive derby. I couldn't quite believe that result. We do have Wolves obviously in the next game week, if you want to call it that, after Everton as well. So yeah, it's not too bad of a time for Trent to pick up some injuries. And like you say, Joe Gomez, he was left out of the squad, wasn't he, today? I think just as a precaution, but he is back in training.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, Chiesa, who had the 90 minutes, was also not brought along. I think that's mostly just because he had played 90 minutes for his first time. And we have players we know Indo is also dropped into center back at times. So I imagine that we could find some workarounds for the right back position if we had to for a game or two, or if we had to deal with that situation. But I think Gomez is good enough to play there, and Bradley has shown that he's more than good enough to play there as well to not even just carry us over, just to keep the position nailed down until Trent's ready to kick a ball again. And again, it might just be a situation where it was just exhaustion, just being tired. Because yeah, like with our squad depth, I think we're actually pretty well stocked right now with defenders that can cover that type of position. So yeah, it's a worry because Trent's obviously so unique and so special, and I don't think that should ever be forgotten. I think at times as Liverpool fans, Liverpool supporters, especially with him not playing well against United, it's very easy to buy into outside voices about Trent being, you know, bad at this or bad at that. But I think as Liverpool fans, we should always be willing to, well, not even willing, just be honest and be that Trent is still one of the best right backs in the world. That's why Madrid want to sign him. That's why teams want to sign him. You know, it's a blow, but it's not going to dent. It should not. Let me rephrase this. It's not going to dent our title charge or our hunt for trophies as we continue to do that.
My heart sank. I don't know if you saw on the chat earlier, because I had a 12-mile run and then I had a swim. And my heart sank when I didn't see Chiesa on the squads or in the team sheet. And I was like, oh, no, like every time you see Chiesa not in the squad, I just assume the worst, assume an injury, and thought, no, after 90 minutes, after coming back. But yeah, hopefully it's just, you know, as you said, it's just minutes managed. And I think a few of the journalists said that as well. So hopefully we'll see him against Tottenham Hotspur, and hopefully, you know, against Everton too. Let's bring West in then. Hello, West. How are you today? You okay? You're still on mute though, so we can't hear you.
I'm good, lads. I hope you guys are good.
Yeah, good. You took it into your dinner. What you got? Anything nice?
Oh yeah, no, I just made a chicken stew, so I was trying to sort it out quickly.
Chicken stew, very good. Right, so you know, let's think about then Mohamed Salah, because I've got an amazing graphic here. Again, he's breaking records left, right, and centre. He now moves ahead of Frank Lampard, who is dubbed the best midfielder in the Premier League in terms of goal scoring. He's now moved ahead of him in Premier League all-time top goal scorers. He's up to 6th now, is Mohamed Salah, after his brace today. He goes one above Frank Lampard, who is on 177. Mohamed Salah is on 178. The person closest to him is one Sergio Aguero, who gave us one of perhaps the greatest moments in Premier League history, especially because it was between City and United going for the title. It made it even sweeter. He's on 184. So Salah is 6 away. Now, the way he's going, you'd expect him to get into the top 5 by March, the way that he's banking in the goals. But if you're looking at 178, realistically, if you're going to say Salah's going to score, let's say another 10, okay, maybe another 10, which will take his goal tally up to 30 for this season in the league, I think. He would also go above Andy Cole on 187. So he would be in the top 4 Premier League goal scorers of all time. That is a fantastic feat. Wayne Rooney, if he could beat him, he's 30 off at the moment, Wayne Rooney. So he's 30 off Wayne Rooney in 3rd. So again, that would be a nice little feather in his hat. And he's 35 off Harry Kane. I don't think he's going to catch Alan Shearer, but he's 35 off Harry Kane. So he actually needs 35 more goals, which I could see him doing if he stays this season and next, to be the top 2 of all time. I mean, Dan, how impressive is that really from Mohamed Salah, who when we bought him, everyone was saying he didn't do it at Chelsea, absolute waste of money. And now look at him, he's 35 goals off being second in the all-time Premier League top goal scoring list.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I've said this, I even said this with Dylan, that I think he's the greatest Liverpool player in the Premier League era. And I think you can make an argument that he's probably the greatest of all time. If you think about of our great players that we've had, we've had Dalglish, unless you're going back to Ian St. John and like Kenny Keegan and them. But I think we would all agree that I think Salah is I think he's even topped them on the Liverpool scoring charts. Think about great players who had in the Premier League era, Torres, Suarez, Sturridge for that very brief window of his career, sadly cut short by injury. There's no one that really comes to mind. He's
Are we
up
just
there
talking
with,
forwards? Yeah, just forwards.
yeah, just forward.
Premier League era. Yeah.
You could also just say like players of all time in general. I mean, yes, we have Steven Gerrard, obviously.
Yeah, Ian Rush as well.
Ian Rush. Well, this is what I'm saying. Like he's like Salah's. The conversation with Salah is that he's at the pinnacle of your Dalglishes, your Rushes, your Barneses, your Gerrards, and I think you can make an argument that he might be the best of all of them. I'm not saying this to be trying to be controversial or have a hot take or any way. I think that you could look at any Liverpool player from any generation and Salah is going to be, he's either going to be equal or better than them. Obviously, Kenny was a unique player. He didn't always score the most goals. I think he's only 1 in 3 for his career, but he was just so unique in how he played at that time period. Rush's goals are just out of this world. Back in a time when the offside line was much less generous, it was like you had to be before the defender. You wasn't even in line. You had to be before the last defender. So I think that's where he's at right now. He's a Liverpool all-time great. He's a Premier League all-time great. Potentially one of the greatest footballer ever played for Liverpool. That's not named Steven Gerrard or anybody else. I know we'll probably get into the contract situation in ways. And I said this on the stream too, that with all that being said on how great Mo is, I think he's also a player that we can move on before. And the reason I'm saying this is so that we just enjoy him now, enjoy this pinnacle of greatness that Mo Salah is now and what he's doing. Because this is a classic Mo Salah game. Not really involved, Kirkez, Bournemouth trap him and stop him from contributing very well. But he's involved. He's there. His passes aren't really coming off, but he's still there. He's still a threat. He's always offering something. I think I've always said that I think sometimes we think world-class players or greatest players of all time should be your Gerrards, your all-action players, or who did I say before? Like someone that does all the tips and tricks. But that's one spectrum of world-class. Salah's world-class is he's just always a threat. Like you don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but you know that it's always there. It's the Messi effect, I would say. It's the idea of like the Messi effect. Messi may not always have the best game or always be pulling off the greatest passes or moves, but he's always there and he's always a threat.
Yeah, and it's a strong shot. I certainly think Mo is in the conversation of top 5 of all time, and I think within the rest of the top 4, I think you can make an argument for every single one of them. If I'm honest, for me, I think he'll always be Kenny, followed by Stevie, but Mo certainly up there with Rush as well. I think, like I say, those top 5, it could go in any order, couldn't it? But I certainly think he's in that top 5. When we talk about Mohamed Salah, West, when we talk about him, do you think, because sometimes we've seen a drop-off post-January, post-Christmas, especially when there's an AFCON, do you think that that Salah's going to have a drop-off, or do you think that actually, no, this 34 goal assists, I think it is now in the Premier League, this season, that's just going to carry on. He's going to have another wonderful season.
I do expect to drop off, but then I look at the other players to step up. So with Salah, like, I criticize Salah, but then I do expect a drop off because we all expect drop offs from our players, at least 2 games or 1 game. So I wouldn't mind Salah getting a drop off. But then I think his drop off happened like in the United game, Nottingham Forest game,
Mm.
Brentford game. So I think his drop off happened. Now it's time for him to kick on. And when he kicked on, I think he kicked on in the Champions League against Lyon. And I thought Salah now start scoring his goals and he's coming back to his form. So I'm expecting a drop off, but then for now, I don't see it coming anytime soon.
And I think it does help with Chiesa playing 90 minutes, and Mo can have a little bit of a rest. We know that he's a player who doesn't like to have a rest. We know that he's a player who likes to play on momentum, but at the same time, it's certainly not going to hurt, is it? Him playing and making the big games the big games. He took his second goal beautifully, and I thought, his penalty today was with an absolute aplomb. Kepa didn't even have a chance even if he was at full stretch. So, really, really important. Tomorrow, then, let's very briefly talk about tomorrow because I would like to touch on the Dutch Zidane, which is Ryan Gravenberch as well. But before that, we better move on to the Manchester City and Arsenal game, because now I always thought with these 2 games, I suppose, in the space where Man City and Arsenal play each other, we just needed to match an Arsenal result. I'm still a little bit worried about City. If I'm honest, I don't think I'll be happy with City until it's mathematically not possible for them to win the league because we've been burnt too many times. But I always thought if we just matched Arsenal, keep them at arm's length, that would be a massive help. And we've already done that because no matter what Arsenal do tomorrow, they can only match our result, which is a win and 3 points. So who needs this win more, Arsenal or Manchester City? And what does it do for the other team now that Liverpool do have 3 points on the board? Are they out of the title race if they're Man City, or even Arsenal, a 9-point gap? Is that too much for them to come back in as well? Dan, I'll come to you first, and then I'll ask the same question to West, maybe with a little added twist in there.
Oh, it's 100% Arsenal. This is very much similar to last year. So last season when we go to the Emirates, where it was a must win for Arsenal. I didn't think it was a must win for us during that title run in when it was between us, City, and Arsenal. I think at the time we were the league leaders. We had just beaten them in the FA Cup away. I think it was around this time, maybe a bit earlier in January, when Trent hurt his knee. It's 100% must win for Arsenal. If Arsenal do not beat City, I think it's too much of a mountain for them, especially if we win the derby. It's more that Arsenal have to win just to keep pace. That's where they're at this point. They're not going to, because we have the game in hand, not them. They are essentially just setting the boundary. Right now, all Arsenal can do is set the boundary for what the gap could be, the floor, so to speak. And if the floor goes from, let's see, right now it's 9, so they could cut it back to, they could go back to 6. If the floor is 6, if they beat a City, then obviously this is going to go on until potentially the game in May, I imagine. Because, Arsenal will still have that belief that they can make up the ground somewhere, even with their injuries and not bringing it forward, which, they'll blame on anybody else but their own team. It's why don't we sign Sesko? Oh, it must be because of Jurgen Klopp, or, Leipzig don't have to sell to you. All the
why didn't we sell Watkins? Oh, it's because John Duran went to Saudi Arabia. Or
should have bought Duran before he went.
Yeah, why didn't we sign Isak? Oh, because he's too much, and he's Newcastle don't want to sell him, and they've needed a striker for ages.
Yeah, and so I think it's 100% a must win for Arsenal. For City at this point, they're fighting for top 4/top 5 to be in the Champions League. That's where they're at the moment. That's why they spent all that money in the January transfer window, is because for them it's a gamble to get back in the Champions League. And people are talking about what the Chargers are going to say. I think it's more the fact that they're just trying to make sure that they can guarantee Champions League football, regardless of what how the court case goes. And again, Arsenal know it's a must win. If they draw, the funny thing is if they draw, it'll be back down to 8, meaning that we could potentially go 11 points clear after the derby,
or 9,
or 9 if we draw 2. That's true.
No, I don't mind 9.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you're you don't mind a draw. Listen.
If they draw.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm saying that if they do get a draw,
Mm.
I think that what that does is that means it's just they're just hoping and praying that Liverpool don't beat Everton at
Yeah.
Goodison Park. And listen, the Evertonians are not going to let us. Yes, City will beat them. I don't know. Like City are weird right now. Like City are a weird side. Arsenal weird side right now too, with their injuries and their setup and their problems. I don't mind 9 either if we draw at Goodison Park. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's more the fact that if Arsenal draw and we draw and it's 9 on same games played without the schedule being moved again for a potential for a League Cup final. Yeah, if that interferes with it, it's more psychological than anything. You know, I feel that if Arsenal get a win, they'll still have the fight. If it's a draw, I think there's still a lot of mountains to climb. If they lose, I think that they're mentally, unless we just absolutely lose the derby. I think if Arsenal lose, it's not the final death knell, but I think that the belief is going to be like pulled out of them much more. Because again, I think it's important to remember that back when the last time we were title challenging, and not even just last year, but in 21-22, we had like 3 games in hand at one point to City. I think we were like 15 points behind, but we had like 3 games in hand. So people forget that while the gap may have been large, so to speak, we had the games in hand that we could make up the ground on them. And we did up until the last game of the season for the second time in a row, in our sporting lives. So I don't know if Arsenal have the mentality to keep up with it if they don't win. If they win, I think they could start to put on a winning streak. And then again, it's about matching the results or bettering them for the most part. But I don't see where they have it this year. I think they've been remarkably, what's the word, cowardice. Like you remember the draw against City, you know, the earlier in the year.
Yeah,
that
so
they celebrated.
strange.
Yeah, they've just like, I get it, but it's very much from they haven't come out with an attack the league. It's very much like don't lose the league mentality. And I feel like that once you get to that point, you know, it's very hard to turn it on. But again, beating City at the Emirates, you know, I think that could spur them on, but that's why I'm saying it's a must win for them. It's a must win in the sense of if they win, the title could go to May. If they don't win, I think it could be decided by March or April.
Yeah, that game that you mentioned about saying it'll go to May, it's on the 10th of May. It is at Anfield. Well, it's on the 10th of May. That's because they all will get rearranged unless it stays on the Saturday. And, you know, if it's on the Sunday, it's obviously the 11th of May. But it is at Anfield. And Arsenal, like you say, if they are behind, they are going to have to attack that game. And that'll be really interesting to see it at Anfield. You know, if they are going to have to attack it, they can't play for a draw, depending, I suppose, on those results. And those fixtures, because obviously, you know, they've only got 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks? No, it's 1 week. It's the penultimate game, isn't it? 18th. Is it 18th of May or is it the 25th of May? The season ends.
I think it's the 25th. I think it's the penultimate game.
I thought it was the 25th. Yeah.
It's essentially, it's very similar to the game where, it's the title win that Arsenal had in 1990, I think it was, or 89, like last game of the season or next to last game of the season, where they had to beat Liverpool 2-1 to win it. I think they're going to be, if they beat City, it could come down to that game being the title decider. If they don't beat City, I think the title will be decided before that game.
Yeah, Liverpool's last game of the season is at home. However, it is against Crystal Palace, and we know sometimes what can happen in those Crystal Palace run-ins when we're fighting for the title. Luis Suarez certainly does. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting, that game. West, what does it do then to a Manchester City team if they don't win tomorrow? Because looking at the league table as it is now, and yes, we are all equal. We have played all 23, but obviously we know we've got that game in hand. Manchester City are 15 points off us. So 15 points off us. If they don't win tomorrow, that would mean they're either 14 points off or obviously they stay 15 points. Is that still too much of a gap for them to basically not give up? Because I don't think City ever will give up no matter what Pep says. Is that still too much for them, or would you still perhaps be slightly more worried that a City charge might be imminent?
So now if City win tomorrow, for me, I want City to win tomorrow so that they can put Arsenal down. But then I think We can knock City out of the title race when we play them at the Etihad on the 23rd of Feb. We can knock them out of the title race. We can put them inside the coffin. So I really know. I don't think City have a charge because I saw the fixtures coming up. They have Newcastle, they have Madrid. So I think there are points about to be dropped there. But then for Arsenal now, if Arsenal don't win tomorrow and they go play the defensive game, they'll be in trouble, to be honest, because down it gives Liverpool momentum to go win the derby, and when we win the derby, the gap is much larger. So, as I agree with Dan, if Arsenal win, the game can go to Anfield. But if Arsenal lose, I think we might win the league between March or April. So I'm looking at now City. If City win that game, for me it's not a bother because now the game against Chelsea, City just got gifted chances. To be honest, if I was watching that game. They got gifted chances. So I still believe, even though City win, I don't think they can still bring on the trust that they've been on for the past 3 years or so. I think they can still be got at. And I'm praying for a City win just to kick Arsenal out of the title. But then, yeah, I don't think the City can win the league, to be honest.
Don't know us have we played anyone decent yet. Nottingham Forest are probably the only team that I've been wowed with twice. But we get to play Everton, Damo. So the answer will be no, because I'm sure that Everton will give us a good game as well. They're rejuvenated as well under David as we play them twice within about 3 weeks. Let's go with the Dutch Zidane, then Ryan Gravenberch, and let's talk about him because again, he's just going above and beyond this season. He doesn't look like he's slowing down. I think it was a great decision not to play him against PSG and give him a bit of a rest. I think those two games are absolutely massive that we will not be playing in the Champions League for finishing obviously top of the group. I think that's massive, and Wes touched on it as well. In terms of City having to play Madrid, you know, in those two games, that will take a lot out of them as well. But I mean, we're soon to be running out of superlatives to Ryan Gravenberch. But I suppose the bit that I'd like to just touch upon is what Slot said, because Semenyo, I thought, had an amazing game, as did Kerkez, until Slot made a little decision, a really good as the tactical tweak and the tactical genius that he is, to push Gravenberch over to the right-hand side to stop Semenyo and Kerkez. I thought that was an absolute masterclass, a brilliant stroke, because Trent was getting mauled in the first 20 minutes against Semenyo. And then after that, Semenyo was a little bit, dare I say, non-existent for the rest of that game, because Gravenberch was coming across and they were essentially, and then Conor Bradley as well, just doubling up on him. It's those tiny little tweaks that make a massive difference in a title challenge and in 90 minutes. But again, we've seen Ryan Gravenberch now shift over almost to like a right-hand sided midfielder. Is there anything he can't do, Dan? Maybe playing goal? Although, to be fair, he's quite tall. I reckon he could probably play in goal as well.
Well, the only thing we haven't seen him do yet is score goals, which is probably the one thing he doesn't have.
One, hasn't he?
Yeah, and that was at Fulham last year away, which was a very good goal. I mean, obviously today he gets the run down the right side, then he sadly decides to shoot on his left foot and maybe skies it a bit. But I think I think people have to understand that the way that we play and the way Slop has this team playing is that we're going to see that a lot, where we get in a position and instead of just holding the ball or recycling it, we just shoot it and reset. And I think that's why, like, Grav just took the shot in that situation. It's like, oh, if it goes in, great. If it works keeper, great. But if it goes out of play, also great. No, there's nothing. I hate to bring this up because I don't want to be the person that just harks on the one time I feel like I got something right, which is with nothing at stake. Is the fact that, Gravenberch is just ridiculous. There's no midfielder right now. There's no number 6 GM, whatever you want to call it. They can do what he does. They can carry, they can pass, they can defend space, they can tackle, they can intercept, they can
press resist. It's just
press resistance. Absolutely. It's like taking the awareness of a Fabinho and the passness and putting in the ball carrying and dribbling of a Genie. It's like you're combining both those two players. Again, like I think people have forgotten, and I think it should be remembered, that of the 3 midfielders that Liverpool had as the next big thing that we tried to buy, it was Jude Bellingham, Aurelien Tchouameni, and Ryan Gravenberch. And the only reason they did not buy Gravenberch before we went to Bayern was that he wasn't quite at the there was 2 reasons, really. One, it was he was still relatively young. So there was this idea of, do you want to spend 15 million on a player that you're not going to play? And two, he hadn't quite hit the games that they were looking for in order to, that one magic 150 senior appearances, where at that point you have enough data to know this is what he can go off to be. This is what this is what he can be, so to speak, and this is what he is. I just think that we're just seeing a player that is, like I said before, and I said this in the post match, he has the physical talent, the technical ability, and the tactical awareness to know what requires him to do at any one time. And then you mentioned that adjustment Slot did. I'm pretty sure he does that because of what happened against United, where I think Slot figured out very quickly, I know how to adjust this since they're overloading Trent on this side so much. I'm going to have Grav go in and do that. And that's and I think that's a reaction to how United got at us a lot in that second half and during that game when we played them at Anfield. And I think Slot realized, okay, I'm just going to pull Grav and have him cover here, and Dom will drop back, or we'll have someone drop back and fill the space that Grav leaves.
West, I don't think really there is anybody in the world that could do what Ryan Gravenberch does. Certainly none who are available for transfer. That being said, do you still think that we need the reinforcements in midfield? You think that maybe not in January, because I generally like, obviously the window being very close to shut. I don't think we were ever expecting anything to actually happen. I think it shuts on Monday, doesn't it? But we were never really expecting anything to happen, I don't think, if you're a Liverpool fan. Is there a need, though, in the summer to go out and get some more reinforcements? Is there a Zubimendi type that we were obviously interested in and that we wanted? Is there that type of profile of a player? It looks like he might be going to Arsenal anyway. But is there anyone, do you think, that Liverpool do, or do you think they will keep what they've got, rely on perhaps Bajcetic to come back from Las Palmas and slot into that first team maybe?
To be honest, yeah, like I don't know really, because like I'm also liking McConnell also, so I want to see more of McConnell. I want to see Slot maybe give him next season a chance, so I'm also liking McConnell. But then I think we do need at least one centre mid, just one DM. I don't know which DM you can get. I don't have names on me, but then like I trust FSG, I trust Hughes to do the job. I think we'll find someone who just be the DM. But then also I also want McConnell, the youth, the academy, to be given a chance too. Just like how Klopp used to do it, like give these young players a chance. So I want to see also start giving our young players a chance. Like I'm sure everyone was impressed with McConnell's performance during the week against PSV.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I want to see him also play in the season, or the next season in preseason. I want to see him too. So I'm kind of 50-50 with bringing in, and like but FSG are not the people who just buy for the sake of buying. They really check what they need and then they go for it. So yeah.
You could have cut that sentence in half where you said FSG aren't the type of people who buy. You could have just left it there. Like that would have been fine. That would have worked as well. Dan, very quick thing, because we are going to wind down here. And thank you all, over 3,000 if you joined us. If you haven't already, please do give the channel a like and a subscribe. Slot said he's going to wait until the final day, I suppose, final hours, whether Jayden Dan's or James McConnell or both or neither will go out on loan. What do you think his decision might be?
I don't think either of them go on loan, as far as I'm aware right now. Oh, you're talking about at the end of the season?
No, just over the next few days. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't think either of them will go on loan. In my opinion, I think we would have heard more moves. I think he'll keep them around for a bit. I think the fact that both McConnell and Dan's got the start for PSV is just showing how much he backs youth. And I think that Slot is I think he tries to be very careful with youth players. I think people have reached a conclusion with, say, Jarrell Kwanzaa that he may not rate him anymore. I don't think it's that. I think Slot started him against Ipswich, realized he was struggling, took him off, put Konate on, and then I think Kwanzaa's just struggled for confidence since then. And I think Slot knows that. And if you notice, he hasn't said the player at halftime since Kwanzaa. Now, granted, the Tottenham game, he was ill, so he brought him off because he was just ill and he couldn't play, but he backed him enough to play him even though he was sick. I think that I would be surprised if either of them get a loan now, because I think Slot's going to want them to maybe rotate for FA Cup games if we get into that, continue with that competition. But you just never know when you might need a 15 or 20 from a McConnell or a Jaden Dans, at one point. Even though I think we shouldn't be relying on Dans to win us a game, it may be that it's like we need, let's say,
to see a game out, maybe.
Yeah, to see a game out, or just to give some rotation to a player, because we have, say, 3 games in 9 days, and you need Nunez and Jota or Diaz fit, or one of them's injured or whatever, and you might need a situation where you need to give Dans 10 minutes and we're up like 3-0 or something at a game, or like a 3-1, or a game where we've already won the game, so you just need to put this player out. I think I agree with West. I think McConnell is one they're going to look at. Bajcetic too, going to Las Palmas, because I think Morton's going to be sold. I think pretty much every youth player from 23 to 21 is probably getting sold. And then it's the 20s and under that he's probably going to look at. Your Ingamoas, your Trainionis, your maybe Chambers, more so than Owen Beck, who is most likely going to be sold in the summer. Yeah, I would be surprised if they loaned out any more of the youth players, just with the fact that the only one that's been moved on is Pitaluga, who was sold back to Flamengo, and Bajcetic restructured his loan from Salzburg to Las Palmas. And I think he's going to be the one that the decision is going to be made in the summer. I think whether to, if he has a long-term career at Liverpool or not, or they're going to sell him on, because his loan hasn't gone so well to Salzburg for a number of different reasons, not all of his fault. But also I think it's become kind of clear that maybe his mindset hasn't probably been the best that you want out of the youth player recently. So we'll see. I would not expect him to loan any of them out.
Wes, do you think we can see any movement in Jaden Dans? I suppose is the one that I thought he might go, because you've got Jota and Nunez coming back, but then again, you can't really rely on either one of theirs fitness as well. So you probably are going to, as Dan quite rightly said, get those players at some point. Maybe pick up a knock here or there, or an illness, and then you are going to need to Jaden Dans. So can you see either McConnell or Dans go out on loan before? I suppose it's Tuesday, isn't it? But yeah, I think it closes. Does it close on Sunday night, or is it Monday night?
It's Monday.
Yeah,
Monday. It's Monday. Yeah.
Is it like 12 o'clock Monday, or I
think it's like 12 o'clock Monday night for I think for Europe, for everyone.
Yeah,
I believe is the one as well. Yeah.
So can you see anyone going out before Monday? I think it's 11 o'clock, and then you normally have until 12 o'clock to register, don't you?
I don't see them going out. As you guys both said, like, we see Jota's a bit injuries, a bit creeping in. We saw him back in the starting lineup in the squad sheet, but then he did not play. But then Jota is a bit touch and go, so I wouldn't think they would loan out Dance and McConnell. And even in the midfield, we can rotate him for the FA Cup games. To be honest, the teams that we get, on Saturday we're playing play mode, so I don't think Slot will stay Gravenberch in. I think we'll play McConnell, play maybe Moti and Dance, because since our attackers are not that available all the time, so I wouldn't see them loan out. But I'll personally be shocked if they both go on loan. I'll be shocked, but then I don't think they will.
Yeah, I would like to see Dans against Plymouth. Actually, he was supposed to go there, wasn't he, in the summer?
Back when Wayne Rooney was the manager, and I'm kind of glad that did not work out, because I think Wayne Rooney has I don't know what's happened to him as a manager, but I think he's not done too well so far, to say the least.
Yeah, I think he's done better by staying at Liverpool, hasn't he? For this, you've got to be, and I suppose Bajcetic is testament to this. You've got to be so careful with those youngsters, that you're loaning them to the right manager, to the right club, and to the familiar tactics that Liverpool will eventually play as well. So yeah, you've got to be really careful with these loan moves. Sometimes they work very, very well, and sometimes they don't work as well. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And like I said, if you haven't already, please do give the channel a like and a subscribe. I am going to have to go, because if you heard the beeping, it's one of the monitors, meaning the battery's going to die. And if the battery dies, that means I can't hear my children scream in the night. So I might just let it die and have a peaceful evening. Right. Cheers for Dan, and cheers to Wes, and cheers for everybody else for joining us. We will see you the same time next week. And as always, throughout the week on the channel and on YouTube. So please do join the lads on the streams there too. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's another win for the Reds as we go marching on ever closer to the league. We've got 15 games left, and the way that Liverpool are going, we could very well be crowned champions. Keep everything crossed, absolutely everything, because it would be sensational. Slot's super season in his very, very first season. Take care, everybody. God bless. As always, up the Reds.